78 slides?
78 slides. It's happening right now. Lights out. All right. Visual effects. If you don't know what that is, go on Wikipedia. There's this part of the Craft Track presentation where you're supposed to explain, how you're gonna do the pre-production, the planning, but I think that's kind of boring, and I think you know that you should do some things like read the script, think about it, meet the people on the project, and try some stuff if you're not sure how to do it, right? I mean, this all makes sense. Can we move on?
Yes.
All right. For the slow kids, I'll be staying after, and we'll talk about what the script is and where you can get a copy. All right, so first of all, again, with the formalities, Chris Wojcik directed Rise of the Animals, and Jeremiah shot it. So that's the film I'm going to talk about right now. And I'm going to do it chronologically. Okay, so post-production. Back in the day, in the spring of my junior year, we didn't even know if this was going to be possible. So what we did was, every couple of weeks we'd run outside with the camera and we would try something. Take a look at this shot. Try to strike that pose if you can get that. Yeah, I mean, it's not beautiful, but let's talk about what is accomplished here. You can see that the CG road is totally locked on there, and that was one of the things we were worried about because we have a lot of handheld camera, a lot of moving camera. So this was, one of the first big successes that we had with Rise, with the pre-production stages. So then, the first animal for the first scene was an emu, or the CG moo, as we call it. And Wojcik, one of those days, he sent me this picture, and he's like, model up an emu and make it look like that. So I started doing it, and I thought it looked pretty good. And then someone decided that we'd be working with a puppet instead. So I moved on, and I found the puppet, and I remodeled the whole CG moo. It took me a couple of months. It was pretty difficult to do. And then we moved on to testing for this animal. Pinwheel. We actually didn't have too many complicated moving shots. Yeah, I know, it's animated very well. Rendered also just as nicely. But as you'll see, I mean, we had some success with the moving camera. You can see that the road sticks on there pretty good. There's some jitter, but I mean, nothing that I couldn't have solved. So we were confident that as we move forward, we would be able to handle a lot of these problems. Okay, and then this shot is really cool. This was the CG moo in action. We kind of went with like this, almost like a fake stop animation feel to it, or stop motion, whatever. But then someone decided that they were going to cut the emu out of the script. This is how I envision Chris every time he's directing. Just a reckless, joyful path of destruction. All right. So anyway, I moved on. And again, this is back in the summer when I didn't know what the hell I was doing. And I still don't know what I'm doing. And I came up with, some of these models. We got the bear, the face. Kind of looks like if a pug had his face hit with a shovel in the bottom left. The joints not deforming too well in the bottom right. The rabbit, I didn't make a face. And the fur. The fur was a big success, though, because that was going to be a really important part of it. And also, I'd like to invite Jeremiah and Chris, as we get into the production side. Anytime you want to interject, just speak up, because you had very, very much to do with these shots. Okay, so in the summer, the first thing I tested, since I knew that the bear was going to be used, was just walking with a moving camera. Not a great walk cycle, but, relatively believable. Next thing we had to test was the fur, which was it's still hit or miss. It still doesn't look great. But, I got the shadows in there, which looked pretty believable. I kind of matched the lighting. So we had some success there. And the last thing I tested over the summer was using different render passes and working on this boat and octopus, because we have a crazy shot coming up with that. We can look through that one more time. Yeah. Okay. So another thing I did was I basically made this for my reel, but another part was I had to figure out the render path system in Maya. For those of you who haven't used it, basically you combine a whole mess of images together to make something that looks more photorealistic. It's a little bit easier than doing it all in one render. So just watch through this. Don't even bother reading the words, just look at the pretty pictures. Let it take you away. All right. So does anyone need to see that again, or can we move on? Move on.
Yeah.
That's what I thought. Okay. Another mandatory slide. Shooting. Bring stuff. Shoot it right. And then the last one, which I guess this is the only really valid, important point that I really want to stress that we never did, Wojcik, is cover all the scenes with a lockdown camera, because sometimes you will not be able to get that camera to match. Unless you're me and you're perfect and you can do anything. So, the first shot that we did for Rise of the Animals, the first effect shot, this one is just, I love this one. Doesn't look too beautiful, but it's live action. Anytime you'd like PowerPoint. Dog jumping through some glass. You see it the first time it works. You watch it a couple times, you start to notice the flaws, but whatever. So let's move on to look at how this shot was done. Again, going chronologically. Got the green screen up in the top right, because the dog wouldn't jump out the window. It kind of did this thing. I think I'm just going to be the dog for a second. We're going to come up to the window. Going to reach over, and it would lean, and then... So that's why we had to use the green screen. And now I broke my hip. So in the down here, over here in the bottom left, you can see the glass behind black. And black is good for capturing reflections, because reflections are just additive light. Black has, no light added, so that's why you use black. So you can see that we captured it there. I didn't fill the frame, so later on we went into Jeremiah and Chris's garage and captured some more glass breaking, threw it all on top of the plate, and the shot was good to go. Okay, and another thing, Malcolm's not here, Kevin's not here, but I just want to show we did protect the camera. Look, see, plexiglass, strong as steel, a hoodie, also strong as steel. Yeah, so we covered it, okay? All right, so then was the first CG shot. And I admit I cheated. I did go and re-render this later. But the way that we accomplished this was we had a locked down camera. We took measurements to the rabbit. We took the measurements of the focal length, or the zoom, or whatever you want to call it, on this camera. And input that all into the scene so everything was lined up, and then eyeballed the difference, animated it, did some compositing to put in behind the grass, and it was good. All right, and just thought I'd show you the model. Looks pretty different than the rabbit, but whatever. This is where you may ask some questions. This is not something you see every day. This is a Magnum condom being sliced open with a knife on a green screen. Now, you may be wondering, why do we use condoms instead of balloons? Well, this was Wojcik's idea, and I have a theory. See, he has a lot of condoms laying around, but he doesn't use them. I mean, it's not that he's unattractive. A lot of guys find him attractive, but I don't know. So, condoms explode nice. Let's take a look at this shot. Being shot with a 9mm pistol, blows up a rabbit. I just think is great. Maybe if we have more time, I'll show you the scene, because it actually does edit together really, really nicely. These two shots, they look short and like choppy, and it's tough to see what's going on, but in the edit, it looks great. Okay, so then this is the breakdown. Try not to have a seizure. What we did was we threw some rabbit chunks against green screen, threw some blood against green screen, blew up some condoms against green screen, and slapped it all together. All right, that's the final shot. And then I also thought that I'd mention that this was done with the same exact technique. The only difference being that this rock right here, yeah, I know it's a tire blowing up on a rock. It's not that cool. This rock was already cracked, and I just went in and I painted over the cracks for like the 22 frames that that was before the explosion. And that's another reason why I used the lockdown camera, because I didn't want to track the motion. So let's move on and look at the breakdown for this. Again, when you're shooting with something that's white, it really helps to shoot over black because, well, there's a lot of contrast there to pull a matte. So, we shot the black over green. We could have shot it over white, but green is also pretty bright when you go in and look at the RGB channels. We had a bunch of pieces of footage of us just throwing a tire on green screen, and you can see that it's just kind of all slapped in there together. So next up, okay, take a look at this shot. It's blood coming out of the car. The dog is eating some woman. She shouldn't have opened that door. It was a bad decision from the beginning. Now, what is wrong with this shot? What was composite in this shot? Well, if we take a look, there's a jug and hands in there. Who could be responsible for this? Yeah, all right. It's always Wojcik. So I'm going to show you. I'm going to stop ripping on Wojcik in a second, but I got to get out my aggression here with this next shot. This shot right here. So there's the before. Now look, there's fishing wire over here. I don't know how well you can see it up on the screen. There's this tube, okay? And I go through painstakingly and remove it, frame by freaking frame. Just watch this one over again. I want you to see this because no one's ever going to see this but you. It's removed. The fishing wire's gone. The shirt was sewed together at the beginning, right? Okay, now let's look at the actual edit. Up here. There's me. This is how I feel about this. 83 frames, okay, out of however many this is, leaving 244 wasted. So the point that I'm getting at is, one, Wojcik kind of sucks, even though I love him. But two, you should really try to have an edit before you do your visual effects. It will make things much faster and much easier. I love you, Wojcik, and your acting is just beautiful. Okay, another shot that was very similar, I'll just get it out of the way right here, is sometimes you have to mix the practical with the visual effects. And Chuck gets shot like 4 times, and what I did was I just went in and I painted these holes to look like a shirt for the couple of frames. You go in there frame by frame, you clean it up, you cry, you complain a little bit, but in the end it looks great and it's worth doing. So, that was good. Alright, so now we get into more CG. We had a little bit of success with the rabbit. And, what? Play. Okay, we're playing? Excellent. Yeah, alright. There's some deer. They're kind of big, they're kind of beefy, whatever. So one of the nice things about this was they were lit pretty nicely, and I want to show you how we lit everything for this film. If we go over here and take a look, this is the HDR ball, and I should have brought it. I have it in my locker. I wanted to pass it around. I forgot about it. But basically what happens is we shoot it at every f-stop, or shutter speed is actually better. And then we combine it all into one image, see down here, and we put this ball around the CG, and then in the end it will project light onto our character, and it will look correct as if it's in the scene. It's just a way of capturing data. It's a lot easier than lighting it by eye. Also, we went out there and we took reference video, or reference clips, whatever, with these puppet deer. And the way that you get the texture for the deer is you take the light ball and you add the light to a picture where it is within that captured light, right? And then you subtract that from you subtract the combined two from this, and it's going to leave you with a texture that's the same color. So the body is more red, but if you look at the face in the back, that's how I got it to match this. Okay, another shot where the HDR ball just did a really nice job matching the texture and the lighting was right here. I figured I'd show you it because it's in the film. Yeah. Baby deer. White. Okay, moving on. So another deer shot. This one had some challenges because we had to put the deer through this foggy windshield, which actually wasn't too bad. So I'll show you how we went about doing that. Let's see, one more. Yeah, it looks okay. Okay. First of all, how we fogged up the windshields. You know, if it played as I was saying it, it would probably come across a little bit better. See that's the joke. Iron Man. Get it? Okay, that was funny. Moving on. Yeah. Great. Okay, so the reference we took for this was right here. We got the deer through the windshield with the fog, through the windshield without the fog, capture the light ball outside of the car. The reason why we did this outside the car was because we just wanted to capture the light as accurate to the scene as we could. Because if we captured it through the window, bad things would happen. I don't really want to get into it, but it wouldn't be exact. So over here, we're dragging this big black screen in front of the windshield. And what that's doing is that's getting us an unbiased frame of the windshield, which we can post over this frame right here. So this is clean. This is what the deer goes over. This is what we screen over the top of that. And I'll show you a really fast breakdown. All right, so what you do is you cut this out and you put in the image of just the background without the fog. You put in the deer, and then you place everything back over the top. So compositing is just like making a sandwich in the right order. Okay. So next up, I'm going to get through some of these lamer shots where basically we didn't have the weather on our side. Well, we did sometimes, but you can't always get this much fog. So I'll just show you the before and after for this one. I mean, sorry, this is the after, and then I'll show you the footage, the original. So, you know, throw in some fog. Next up, you know, sometimes the sky is blown out, not much you can do about it, so you go in there, throw in a new sky. Muzzle flash isn't in there, it's just kind of a little tiny flash. There will be one. We got the stars, because sometimes the stars have to be shaped like a pizza. So there's the original. No pizza. There's a pizza. That big one looks like a pepperoni. And then sometimes you just have to make stuff. Now, I did this in Photoshop, so I'm not going to go into any breakdowns for this one. It's pretty simple. Just copy and paste some stuff, and you have a new image. Helicopter. That helicopter was not CG, by the way. We actually just Chris saw a helicopter going by one day, points the camera up at it, and that was enough. I stabilized it, color corrected it, and we had a chopper in the shot. So that was pretty cool. Okay, so back to some more CG stuff. Ooh. Squirrel going around the pole. So it looks pretty cool. I'll show you what this looks like in Maya. What we did was we didn't really have measurements, but we kind of guessed. We guessed that the camera was on a 45. We threw the pole in there. This was a 2D camera move, which means that the camera was just moving. The operator was standing still, and he was just tilting it, you know, pan, tilt, up, down, left, right. But there was no actual 3D movement. So that's why it actually doesn't matter how you track this. You can track this. You can put any lens in the tracker. You can say it's wide angle, or you can say it's close angle. And because it's a 2D move, it's not going to matter. Let me show you something really cool, though. Once you cut out that motion from the objective camera, this is what it looks like. Does anyone else think that's cool? Am I the only one? All right. I heard one yes. Then that's more than my class usually gives me, so I'm pretty happy. Okay. Next up, some of the render passes. Basically, you render out the skin, then you render out the fur, and then you render out the highlights for both, and you're going to add those over the top. The reason why you break these up is because it's very tough to light these correctly in Maya, and it's very tough to make color corrections. Every time you press the render button, you're going to wait about maybe a minute for it to all come together. So you have to make a change, press render, wait a minute. Make a change, press render, wait a minute. And that's horrible, because if you do it in After Effects, yeah, you have 4 times as much data, the file is much larger, but you can move really, really fast. So get a big hard drive, make life easy on yourself, and cut down your render times by rendering in layers. Unless you're good enough to light it in Maya, in which case, do that. Okay, so next up, these are some cool shots. Hey! I said these are some cool shots. So Chris and Jeremiah, you want to talk a little bit about how we came to these decisions? No?
In the original script, this was going to be a horse car chase scene, but we couldn't really get the horse out running on the open road. That just wouldn't work. And also, we couldn't just have the horse running around chasing after Steph. But I guess horses just can't really do that. They need an operator. So we decided, I don't know how we came to this.
It was in a meeting. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a joke.
I think I remember. I was joking. I was like, okay, so I
Yeah.
can take the top off the rider, but the legs overlap the horse. Like, can we just take off the top part of the rider? I was joking. And then Wojciech and Jeremiah were just like, yeah. So that is why we have half a rider on the horse. It was not aesthetic. It was purely because I'm not good enough at what I do. But don't tell anyone. Okay, so let's take a look at these. We shot the horse separate from Steph because she has a fear of being trampled. A little bit unreasonable. One thing I wanted to point out was that the lighting changed really dramatically if you check down here for the second shot. So I actually had to rotoscope Steph entirely, which sucked. But sometimes it's necessary, and sometimes you just have to do it. All the blood was captured on green when it was falling because red has a really nice contrast with green. And it was captured on white for the ground because, well, you can't really see it too well on green when it gets on the screen. White just worked better. We tested a couple of things, and that's what we came up with. All right, let's move on. Okay, so some gator. Oh, wait, did I reveal it before it came up? I'm sorry. Gator. In Jeremiah's presentation, he was saying that we didn't have measurements, which made the shot really difficult. And yeah, it did, which is kind of why the gator is like 40 feet long. I estimated the measurements, and that threw off perspective, and it got kind of weird. But it works. So I'm going to go to a breakdown now, which moves pretty quickly, but you can see you do the gator, the reflections, the eyes, the gator's reflections, the water, the matte, and then the color correction. So try to watch it. Yeah. One more time. Okay, cool. So you may be wondering how we captured the water. Yeah. Basically, all we did was we cranked up the contrast on this image, and because the splash is so like white and reflective, you could just key it based on luminance. And for those of you who don't know, that just means lightness, except there's some other fancy stuff that goes in there. But yeah, basically based on lightness. So that was how we did the water, which will come up a little bit later also. Okay, so you can take your guesses as to what these pictures are for, but me and Wojciech don't get out too much, but when we do, we like to party. So what happened was we realized that the gator, yeah, we could do the gator CG, but the turtles, no freaking way. That was going to be horrible. So what we did was we made these suits to keep everyone warm. You may recognize a few faces. Or rather, keep everyone dry. It was cold in there. And see the turtle puppets?
I believe it.
Oh, check this out. Jonas. That water is 40 degrees. Yeah. So sometimes you just have to know where your limit is with visual effects. And you gotta say, okay, we're doing this practically. There's some turtle. And that looks a lot better than CG ever could. Alright, so let's take a look at these shots. Okay. Now, in order to get realistic animation, you need some reference footage. Yeah. We're going to watch that one more time. Now, but seriously, if you look at the timing of these clips, this is exact, frame to frame, for what we did in the film. So, no, this was really very, very useful. So it was good to take that reference. It was kind of ridiculous looking. There's some reference of me, but because this is my presentation, I didn't show it. Okay. So here's something that, I might send to Wojcik typically once a week. This was a really tough combination of shots. This is where the bear comes in, and then it's going to cut to another angle. Now, the reason why we're doing this all in the same project file is because every time you make a new scene file, you have to relight it and redo your render passes and line up the cameras, and it just made more sense to put everything all in one frame or in one scene and then just have two cameras. So as you can see, we got this camera here filming backwards through this view, and this camera here filming forwards through this view. And up here you can review the actual cut which Wojcik gave to me. So I'll let you take a look at that for one more second, then I will move on. And also there's this indicator down here for off and on. So this is what I would send to Wojcik. He would look at it, he'd think about it real hard, and then he'd say, all right, let's go with that. Let's animate to that. And we wouldn't change anything from that point on because it would make things very difficult, mostly because you have to cheat the position of the bear between the two shots, just because you wanted to animate a little bit better. So I have a really fast breakdown of the bear and its render layers. Again, separating the fur into different passes because it just takes so long that it's easier to take a few lights and then combine them a little bit more freely in 2D. Not necessarily the right way to do it, but sometimes it's the way you have to do it. Okay, so for the charging shot, I'm a pretty bad animator, as you guys know. So just take a look at these frames. We have the final render, and down here you can see that I had a camera that was locked on to a video of a bear running. So what I did was I took my model and I attached an outline shader to it, and this is what I used to help get my animation looking a little bit more bear-like. I didn't include some of the older animation versions of this, but they were even worse than what you see here. They were really bad. Terry, how bad were they?
They were bad.
How bad?
Really bad.
Okay.
There were tears.
There were tears.
Yeah.
Okay. Now another shot that we had a lot of challenges with was this one. We ran out of time on the day we did this, and we couldn't capture the blood in scene, so we decided to do it with green screen. But what you can see here is that the perspectives just don't match. Yeah, Wojcik is being the bear. It's just one of those silly things that he does. But he does it well. And you can see that, I don't know, maybe the camera's a little farther back here. It's a little bit lower. This one's a little bit higher. And the perspectives absolutely don't match. And this caused horror in the CG part, trying to match it up, trying to get the head to line up onto here, and trying to get the blood to line up on the ground, and the bear to be everywhere in between. So this was our first test, where what I did was I lined up the camera. This is my measurement in scene. The camera is the appropriate distance. We use Steph as our measure. She's 5'4" or whatever. This bar is 5'4". So everything is lined up and flawless. Now just look what happens when I follow this with the neck. See, there's a perspective problem going on here. Issues resulted from not taking measurements, or not following our measurements, because we took them, but it was really cold when we shot the green screen, and we just kind of did it. So I'll show you what we tried to do next. What we decided was, okay, let's just put the bear under the floor, and that's how he can follow, and it will look correct. It will still work. And in a way, it kind of did. It still would look okay, but then you'd have some problems with the shadows and with the ground and ambient occlusion, which is soft shadows. So we couldn't use this as a solution either. We needed the bear on the ground. And yes, I thought about dipping the ground in, but that would also look pretty bad. So let me show you how we solved this. So this is where we animated from right here. These are your two other shots for reference. And if you look in the bottom left, what we did was kill the perspective entirely. We zoomed the camera about a mile back, turned the angle of view from wide angle, which is 60 degrees, to about 10 degrees. And then you can really see the difference between the background, the bear, and the head. I don't really know why this worked, why killing the perspective allowed us to tweak things and make it work, but it did. So there you go. Okay, so then I was just going to say, all right, let's just watch these again, and then we'll move on. By the way, the actors were all shot against a green screen whenever the bear overlaps. For this shot, the first shot, the second shot. And the reason for that was because rotoscoping sucks. You guys know what rotoscoping is? It's hand tracing. Yeah. So all we did for these was we threw up a green screen directly in front of the talent, as you saw in the earlier slide, especially in this next one, because that would have been brutal. And we shot it. Okay, so here is a nightmare of a shot. Wait for it. Right side of the frame. They're talking about eating probably. Not noticing what's going on behind them. Cool. Explosions.
Is that the SS Franco?
Yeah. So, all right. So, what I did, just while we're still looking at the shot, is I tracked the 3D move using the railroad track, but I couldn't get the whole scene to track because there just wasn't enough data. It just didn't work. So I'm going to show you how I solved that. I'll let you watch this one more time, and then I'll get into the match moving for it. Yeah, SS Vranos was too narcissistic. SS Wojcik just sounded weird. Franco is just such a suave, nice name. And yeah, stealth bombers do dive. Okay, so here we are. So if you'll direct your attention to the top right frame, you can see this is the camera move exactly. The camera is just kind of following along this path on the railroad. No, I didn't draw on the railroad. That's because it didn't matter. I knew that the move was exact. And that's because we got so many points to track down here that the camera solved it easily. Then if you'll direct your attention down here to the bottom left, see this orange ball right here? What we did was we locked the camera's rotation to always be observing this orange ball. And this orange ball represents a point maybe 500 meters away up here, if you look in the frame, on the mountaintop right there. So the way that I tracked this was we got the 3D parallax, that's the movement of the camera coming across in Maya. We did that using the 3D tracker. Then we eliminated all the motion by finding a spot in the scene that we could use both in 3D and in the actual image. So here and here, we locked those onto each other, and that's how you get the track. And if for whatever reason you want to look down here, this is just the tracking data in 2D. I did this frame by frame by hand, and the reason why you do that is because I don't trust motion trackers. They very rarely work, they slip, and you want them to look good. Whoever's in my class, we will be going over that on Monday, and it's going to suck. Okay, so some new stuff. So this is a new character none of you have seen yet, and he's going to be in the last scene we're doing. All the stuff before this was most of the visual effects for the earlier parts of the film, and most of that was done by the beginning of this quarter. There's a little bit that we're still tying up, but yeah. And there's some shots you haven't seen, but they kind of sucked, which is why I didn't include them. So let's take a look at Oh, right. You may notice Wojcik was saying that this gorilla looks a lot like me. Well, that's because we lifted the textures from me. And the way we did that was me, Jeremiah, and Chris went into the studio and we used 2 light polarizers. Just watch the clip for a second. Okay, give that, maybe it'll play. Yeah. So here's what we did. And tell me if this makes sense or not, because we can elaborate. We had the character, which was me, standing in frame, and we had only a polarized light. No other light, no diffuse light, no ceiling lights, nothing. Just a polarizer we got from the cage, and we put that over the top of the light, so we were only hitting the character with polarized light. And then, on the camera, we had another polarizer the opposite direction. So what that did, right, okay, so this works too. What that did was that took out all the polarized light. Because when the light goes underneath your skin, it's going to bounce around and become unpolarized, which is this light that's reflecting back in the camera through the polarizer. But all the reflective shiny stuff right here, this stuff, that gets filtered out. So what you do is you take those 2 images, you run a difference which compares them, and it's going to spit out this image at the end, which is a pretty perfect texture mapping of the skin. So what we did was we took this, we did it for the eyes, we did it for the skin. We're going to be using this as reference for the hair, probably with Jeremiah because he has black hair, not brown hair. And we're going to, we use this for the textures. I think there might be one more. Let me see. Yeah, the hand. Another cool thing is that when you pull this map, you can actually use this as a normal map. Do you guys know what that is? No? Okay, so a normal map is going to be, it's basically going to take the geometry and it's going to put in little indents and little bumps, outdents or whatever, and it does that based on luminance. So if you look here, all these wrinkles where you'd be going in are black. All the bumps and outdents around the wrinkles, if I zoom in, are white. So it basically makes a perfect normal map which you apply to your base geometry, and it gives you a lot more detail without having to go through and paint it in yourself. All right. I'm going to take a breath before I explain this one. This one was horrible. This is a crazy panning shot where we're going to have the gorilla on top of the car. So how do you think we're going to go about tracking this one? There's nothing to track, right? No, there's not. Okay. So I want you to direct your attention now down to the tire and look above the tire at that black tape in front of the headlight. Do you see that? You guys all see that?
Yeah.
Do you know what that is?
A motion tracker.
Ah. So what we did was we had all these pieces of tape down in the road, and they're every 5 feet. Yeah, this is looping. No, he didn't drive like 60 miles. So what we did was we synced up the 2 videos, the one before it and this one. And what this allowed us to do was this let us know exactly where the car was in real time based on, you know, these 5-foot markers. So let's go ahead to the next one. What I did was I put a mark every 5 feet in Maya. I set up the camera 35 feet back from the road, which is something we took with measuring tape. It's a great tool. And then I went and I took this car and I took the tire, and per frame I lined it up to the time code in Final Cut. So, car move. Everything's lined up. It's all good. So then what I had to do was I had to take that 2D shot. I just stabilized it in 2D around a motion tracking point that we got in the frame, which I'll just show you. Let me pause it 1 second. Play it and pause it, maybe. Eventually. Okay, this point right here on the door, Jeremiah made sure to keep that in frame the entire time. And then this one for rotation, even though he was on a tripod, this was kind of just more of a safeguard. And it also marks the leading out of the van. And what I did was, in 2D, I found this point, and basically I tracked it, and I just followed it for the 60 or 70 frames, whatever it was. And then in Maya, I made that point on the image. So what you get when all of it is combined is this. See that point right there on the window? Yeah. Camera track. And I didn't include the footage, but see how the van is also built out in 3D? Well, do you remember from the beginning of the presentation when I was showing you the camera moves where we built in the road underneath the emu? You do?
Yeah.
You aren't goldfish? Okay. What we did, what we did was we took the van and we put a bunch of pieces of tape on it, and we held up the camera and we just walked around the van. And what that did was that tracked it, tracked the camera move. So it also outputs points. So we just took those points that it gave us, and we found the point that corresponded to this one, the base point. We snapped it to that with all the other ones following along, and it lined up. So, you know, it worked. So now let's take a look at this, which I know isn't how it's supposed to be in the film. I don't care. Ah, it's a monkey. It's not playing very smooth. Hi! That's his voice. All right. Stop. Stop. Next frame. End. How are we doing on time?
You're smart, bro.
Oh, thanks. Well, my cell phone's not working, my laptop's not working. I don't know what time it is, but
7:50.
oh, we made really good time.
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess I'll turn on the lights. Sorry. And any questions or anything else you would like to see? Because I made a point to bring all of my files if you want to see them. Yes.
I'd like to see you doing reference footage.
Hold on.
It's a mess.
Yeah, well, deal with it. Making a feature. Let's go into animation references. And, oh wait, hold on. I think it's this clip. It's clip 3. No, it's clip 2. Hold on.
Just stop down the bear and just put a giant Chris Roach.
All right. No, that was a reference of Wojcik. I don't know where mine is. It's in here somewhere, but if I can't find it, I don't think it's really that necessary to the presentation. So does anyone have anything else they want to see or talk about or ask questions? What's up, AJ?
In that last shot, are you going to take out the trackers and the camera? That you
No.
No. Well, there's probably a reason, but why didn't you just put the camera on the other side of the car?
Because the points were all on the yellow line on the road, and that's what we were measuring to. And we expected the framing to be a little bit higher to not see the camera, but whatever.
Okay.
Plus, we were going to have Luke also try to film it not from the flip cam, to watch as it goes by with the tire on the road. Actually, that was our plan initially, to have Luke capture it with a second camera, but what we found was we couldn't really see the trackers without him stepping into frame, so that's why we taped up the flip camera last second.
When you start this project with Chris, how do you possibly come up with that estimated amount of workload? Because once you guys leave here, I mean, that's always going to be a factor. It's always a factor. But I mean, this is fascinating. This is stuff I don't ever get to see. But it's just it's overwhelming to a certain point because you know it's going to get chopped and hacked and workload and flow and everything else like that. So just kind of pulling your brain out. What's your approach?
Well, I went into it at Wojcik's mercy. And he's not very merciful at all. So what I did was I kind of really roughly thought up some techniques of how to do these well and how to just do them to get it on screen. So like the deer and the rabbit, they don't look great. They serve the purpose of telling the story. And that's because they probably take about maybe a quarter of the time or an eighth of the time as say the bear would. because there's only 1 or 2 render layers. They're very simple models. They're very simple rigs. So what I did from the beginning was I set out to try to make it flexible so I could get it to a point where it looked acceptable, but if I had more time, then I could add on more render layers, more texture, define the model some more. So I undershot it a lot and then improved it as I could. Yeah.
I remember in senior form class you were saying that the amount of shots you had to finish like a shot every 3 days or something like that. Did that timeline like stick with you the whole year, or did you like condense like some shots so that you didn't have to like do that?
I don't think we made too many compromises, Chris. Did we? I mean, did we get every shot we set out to get in the fall?
Yeah.
Pretty much. We might have cut like 1 or 2, but
So would you say you had to follow that timeline pretty closely?
yeah. You know what though? A lot of these shots though, you could get done a couple of them in a day. For the bear shot, there were 9 shots, but they were all from the same lighting and all from the same render passes. So I copied and pasted it over, and then we would just animate, and that would be the time for each of those shots plus rendering. And I render it overnight, time that doesn't really cost anything. So maybe it took me 2 weeks to set up the bear, but it only took probably 6 hours per shot animating it, and then nothing more. Yeah.
You were saying how you consider yourself a weak animator as compared to like your visual effects work. If you could go back and do it again, would you team up with an animator?
Yes. We tried. We failed. No one was interested.
It's tough to find
I wonder
animators.
why.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I would know a lot. I mean, I'm still very impressed with everything. I didn't realize, I like knew all this stuff was like incredibly complicated, more than I could comprehend. But like, it's even now that you show the behind the scenes of it, it's even more in depth than I would ever imagine with doing math and stuff.
Hold on. Hold on.
So many numbers.
Math is a strong word. When we talk about math, we're talking about addition and subtraction here.
No, that's not fair. I distinctly remember you doing trigonometry.
I did trig once, and I
You
had
did
my brother
trig.
do it. No,
It
my brother
happened,
goes
though.
to MIT, okay?
It happened though, I'm just saying.
I did trig one time, and that was for the octopus shot, where basically what we had to do was estimate the distance of that mountain point from the camera. So we took 2 images. We knew the distance that the camera traveled from here to there over 5 seconds, whatever, because and then, hold on, how do we do this? Basically what we did was we knew it slipped like 10 pixels over 5 feet, right? So what my brother did was he converted pixels into radians, whatever that is, and he used trig to find the distance of the mountain. And then after that, I went on Google Maps and found the distance. Yeah.
Was he right?
Yeah, he was pretty freaking close. He's a smart kid. He's smarter than I am. Yeah, okay, yeah?
What did you finally end up using for the nuke shot?
What do you mean?
The actual, like, explosion.
Oh, that. I used this fluid system in Maya. It's, what's it called, Terry?
Fluids.
Fluids. It's called fluids. And what happens is it just has this little emitter point. There's this big old box, and there's a point, and then liquid comes out of it. And based on the temperature and all these little fancy settings that you can set, it'll do what you want. And the last thing you do is you set the temperature, you assign a color to it. So for where it's hot, I make it red. Where it's cold, I make it like a gray for like smoke. So it was pretty simple, actually. I mean, it kind of sucked because there's a lot of trial and error, but it wasn't too bad.
I have a question. It's a quick question. Can you explain your naming conventions to me? Because I'm just looking at your folders here.
Well, every time I get
And I
pissed.
see angry face. There's a fuck you down there.
Oh yeah, hold on. Let me even show you my craft track presentation folder. Let's just go into that for a second, because that was just from today alone. Craft track presentation. Arg. Then sometimes I entertain myself What are you guys seeing and laughing at? What are you guys laughing at?
Oh dear.
Oh, yeah, that was a good one. I thought that one was pretty funny. Hold on. I'm very lonely. Very, very lonely. And they're horsing around. Ha, 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 ha. These are just horrible. And, you know, every time a render fails, like I'll show you with, I think it's with the deer, with the rabbit. There's just a series of just angry swears and cursing God. Well, maybe I won't show you because my computer's going kind of slow, but I can assure you they're there, and they're very vulgar. It makes the render farm use really awkward. All right, you guys all look like you're hungry. Anyone got anything else?
Killer.
All right, thanks for coming.